Hello, welcome to Geek Warning, the cycling tech-focused podcast from Escape Collective. I'm Dave Rome, and joining me this week,
Alex Hunt, tech editor at Escape Collective.
And a very happy welcome back, a voice that our members would have heard regularly in Ask a Wrench, but we haven't had him on for a full podcast for a while. Zach Edwards, Boulder Groupetto. How are you doing?
Hello, doing well. How are you?
Oh, very well. We've had the rare opportunity. Normally the time zones don't work out, which is why we don't hear your voice enough. But this time around you're in Manchester, UK. Yep. What takes you there?
Just kind of in between some race schedule stuff and seeing some family. Yeah, just hanging out. Yeah.
What do you make of the UK so far?
Oh, it's fine. I like it here. I've been a number of times. So, yeah. The last couple of days the sun has been out, so it's quite nice. But a little...
Oh, that's very typical. That's very typical.
Yeah, I know, right? But...
Very rare that it's raining at the moment in Manchester. Yeah. Very rare. All right. Well, yeah, welcome. Great to have you. This week we got a bunch of stuff to talk about. Some sneaky few news-related headlines have been buzzing around in various parts of the internet that we've got some thoughts on and wanted to talk about. The UCI, there's confirmed some handlebar widths that we hinted at last week. I think their announcement came an hour or two after we finished recording last week's episode, so we're catching up on that. We've got not a PSA, but we've got a new segment called Back to Basics, and we're going to wrap up with an Ask a Wrench, where both Alex and Zach will stay on, and we'll dive into that. If you're a member of Escape Collective, you get access to that. We've got a handful of good questions from members. So anyway, to kick things off, top of the list actually comes from a story that some colleagues over at Bike Radar just published. This one, they have some speculation. They found a website that had mistakenly listed the next generation of Shimano Durace pedals, or not just Durace, but Shimano SPD SL pedals. And yeah, these listings basically had them as a SPD SLR pedal, and the product codes do seem unique to something new. Bike Radar have then gone ahead and speculated that this might just be the long-awaited power meter pedal from Shimano that's been long rumored, never seen. But yeah, I mean, there's some patents floating around. Zach, have you had a look at those patents?
Yeah, had a quick look. It looks like maybe an older one for power meter options, and then a more recent patent for like a new cleat shoe interface design.
Yeah, it's probably worth noting that like Shimano and power meters go back a little while. Like they, I believe, had a pedal-based power meter with their bike fitting acquisition that they had. So like they're in a bike fitting company called bikefitting.com, and that included like one of the most sophisticated power pedals out there, where they can basically they can see how the foot's being loaded and hot spots in the foot, and really dissect how someone's pedaling through the pedal rather than just a pure output. So dare I say they've had the tech for quite a while now, but haven't quite implemented it into a pedal that goes outdoors. I mean, Alex, you I believe have been spending a bit of time with the new SPD cleats and pedals from that. Big changes?
No. I think to put it simply, there'll be a review probably out by the time this podcast goes live of the cleats. But no, there are differences, and I think it is probably a positive step. I don't really see any downsides really from moving to this new cleat. But yeah, I think compared to the marketing hype and how it's kind of presented, the changes are a lot more subtle than you'd probably believe.
Yeah. How do you foresee Shimano improving on the SPD SL system then?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah. It's a hard question.
Yeah, I think the tricky question with anything Shimano SPD related, whether it's the mountain bike or road version, is it's just a platform that works at the minute. Like it's not necessarily a place that needs big improvement, because it is just a robust platform that is pretty dependable, especially compared to other competitors out there. Like the durability and just the ease of use of them. Yeah, I'll be interested to see if there is a power meter version coming, if that can remain, if fitting all the electronics into a pedal body affects the durability and the lifespan of a pedal. But also, I think it could be a good move. I don't think it's any secret that the crank-based power meters leave quite a lot to be desired. And potentially moving to a completely different system could be a solution to that.
I agree. It almost feels like Shimano needs to start fresh in the power meter game. Their reputation to date hasn't been so good. And then, yeah, they acquired like Pioneer and all that, but despite that, they sort of continue to roll out power meters that had sort of known left-right balance issues. So yeah, I think you're right on that. I think yeah, coming at it from a different angle makes sense, and I think especially now that we've got the likes of Favero and Garmin both have SPD-SL compatible power meter pedals. Yet the creator of the SPD-SL system doesn't have one. It kind of starts to make a lot of sense.
I also think compared to when the Pioneer acquisition happened and they started rolling out their own crank-based power meters, the accuracy and what you can expect from a power pedal has come on quite significantly. It's no longer kind of the lesser of all the options. It is a legitimate option now for gaining power measurement.
It's almost the benchmark these days. Like if you're, at least amongst the experts in the space, like your DC Rainmakers and your GP Llamas, I mean, they're consistently pointing towards these pedals as like their benchmark and how they compare everything else from. So whether that's right or wrong, like there are arguments to be had, but yeah, the likes of Favero do seem to be able to create some very consistent power numbers. So yeah.
Well, I also think that going to in the current trend of bike fitting and where people are going with crank length, I think having a pedal rather than a crank option power meter could be a good option for stocking on OE builds, rather than giving people a power meter crank set on a crank length. They're going to swap out immediately,
especially when it's like Shimano, it's all one unit, right? Where say SRAM, you can change the crank arm separate from the spider to change length, so you're not necessarily buying a new power meter to go to a shorter or longer crank, right? For Shimano historically, it's all been one unit, so pedals would definitely be easier.
Given we know absolutely nothing about this, do you think if Shimano did do a pedal power meter pedal, do you think they'll stick with like cup and cone bearings, or do you think it'll move to like a sealed bearing system like every other pedal out there?
I mean, there's only so much room in there, and I feel like the Faveros, like they use, I don't know, it's like a bushing for one of the bearings, it seems.
And I think a needle bearing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, maybe a needle bearing, but like
I think both.
Yeah, the durability doesn't seem the same as what a Shimano pedal is. Like, I'm not saying it's bad, but a Shimano pedal just lasts a really, really long time, and that's my only concern with this is like, don't mess with a good thing. But their current power options are not good. Like, even if it was accurate, it's still quite clunky, right? Like, it still requires a magnet. There's still a wire that's attaching the left to the right, and compared to like a SRAM, right? It's just it seems dated.
It does.
Yeah. Like, even if accuracy wasn't an issue, it still seems like it needs a redo.
On that note, though, I was chatting to a friend the other day about Shimano pedals durability, and I realised that I'm going to have to write my trusty PD520s into my will, because they're going to outlive me significantly. I've done nothing to them for about 15 years, and they're still just absolutely fine.
No, I mean, I've got a set of like 20-year-old XTRs on one of my bikes, and they just keep working.
Yeah, they do just over time you end up buying more of them, I find, but the old ones just keep going. So for me, like, that's why I consistently recommend Shimano. It's just everything else tends to wear out, and everything else these days seems to be non-serviceable as well, and Shimano doesn't have that issue. It's if play forms or if grit gets into the bearing, it's a pretty easy process. So for me, fingers crossed that they don't, Zach, as you just said, like, that they don't mess with that, because I think that is like ignore the cleat that's easy to walk in, and the good feel, and the easy clipping in, and all these other elements. I think fundamentally their stronghold in the market is, for me, based on the fact that it's just like the most reliable system.
Right. I mean, that's why you buy a Shimano pedal over a Look or something else, right?
Yeah. 100%. So anyway, one to watch. I mean, we don't really have any more information than what Bike Radar has published on the matter. A lot of speculation on that, but I think it's probably one we won't see this year, but inevitably new things always around the corner. So one to watch out for. But fingers crossed that Shimano's joining the power meter game, in the pedal power meter game. I think that'll be a good one for the market. So, well, next on the list, this is I guess somewhat on my mind, but most definitely on the mind of Adam Kieran, who runs Zero Friction Cycling. For those that aren't familiar, we reference Zero Friction Cycling quite a bit, but the general idea is that they use chain wear to correlate whether how effective a chain lube is. So most recently, Zero Friction Cycling helped with our counterfeit chain testing. So they actually run the chains until worn on a basically a stationary bike that has a 250 watt motor running through the bottom bracket. And so it simulates a real bike because it is a real bike. And they've built up quite a reputation for durability testing of chain lubes. A lot of the top chain lube companies now reference Zero Friction Cycling and how well they place amongst the testing and the standings there. So it's a great resource. But with that, I'd say few people have done more for growing the interest in chain waxing in the last, say, 5 years than Zero Friction Cycling has. And there's internet beef. And it's related to temperature of waxing. This is about as geeky as it gets, really. But it comes off the back of Silka recently posting a blog post about chain wax temperatures, and they had suggested that you should let your wax cool to a point where it's not quite set, but not quite molten liquid, and where it's just starting to cool off just enough that you can pull the chain. And by letting that happen, at 65, 70-ish degrees, more wax stays on the chain. Whereas if you pull a chain at a higher temperature, basically the heat in the metal of the chain will continue to melt the wax and it'll drip out as you hang it. And so, that was the claim. And Silka did the test and showed high temp versus lower temp, and sort of before and after with waxed weights of a chain and how much wax was staying on the chain. Zero Friction Cycling, disagreeing with that, then went ahead and tested it and did two tests, one with a chain at 65 and another one at 100 degrees. Pretty two extremes of temperatures, and then ran them on the bike. And 15 minutes later, they're basically the same weight as far as the amount of wax in the chain. The one that was pulled out at a colder temperature had more wax to begin with, but 15 minutes of riding was enough to basically shed off the excess, and the end result seems to be the same. It then gets more interesting. Figured I'd reach out to Silka and ask their opinion, and they said they're still working with Purdue University on this, and that their testing in a lab with all sorts of sensors and power and all that has shown that the colder pulled chain still shows better longevity, sort of more efficiency for longer. Wax wars, it's fun. What do you both do? I know you've both got experience hot melt waxing chains. What are your thoughts on this? Where do you land?
I mean, I've played around with it a bit and done kind of both extremes, right? And you definitely get more initially on the cooler chain. But it makes sense that it all just kind of flakes off after a little bit. I don't know. I've not noticed one's better than the other.
Adam at Zero Friction Cycling, his whole argument with this and why he sort of wanted to prove that it's doesn't do anything is that he believes that the colder pull and the way you have that much more wax to flake off, it just leads to more mess. So you end up wasting wax on the ground, and it's more likely to clog up your 11-tooth cog or the small cogs in your cassette. He's sort of points to it, just unnecessarily wasting wax without any benefit. It's also, I would argue, it's probably an extra step in the process where you're waiting for your wax to cool, and perhaps even using a thermometer or a temperature controlled waxing pot like what Silka offers. I guess Adam's point of view is just keep it simple, heat up the wax, pull the chain, job done, which I like. So Alex, where are you with this? You've also been on the wax train for a bit.
Yeah, I'm also tight, so seeing a lot of wax just fall off my chain onto the floor is not something I enjoy. So I just keep it standard, and if I feel like I need to top it up, I just add a bit of drip wax,
okay.
And just it's not something I haven't experimented too much with different temperatures, but seeing loads of wax fall off the outer plates of my chain I'll be trying to collect that and melt it back down.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of history here. It kind of dates back to Friction Facts days with Jason Smith, who was an engineer that first got in. He was sort of created the first independent lab for chain lubes. And yeah, he then created, I guess, the modern day chain wax, hot melt wax, which he sort of had a helping hand in with, and gave the recipe to molten speed wax, which is the first mover in this market. So there's a long history here, and even back then he was, testing temperatures and all that, and he sort of settled on like that 85, 90 degrees Celsius range, stating that it gets all the wax in the links where you need it. It makes the wax really viscous, that it flows through the chain and goes where it needs to be, and that the pressure and tension when you ride a chain is enough that the excess wax is inevitably going to get pushed out, and that there's only so much room for the lubricant under those tensions. So yeah, this is sort of been going on for a long time, and it's probably worth noting that molten speed wax, the originator in this segment, still recommends like 93 degrees as a temperature, as the ideal temperature. But even that they're a bit vague on. They're like, just heat up the wax, swish the chain around, pull it out. Rex Wax, who are a bit a newer mover in the space, but are doing what I believe is the number one on Zero Friction Cycling's rankings at the moment. They are also a bit vague on temperature. They're just like, yeah, get it into the range and then swish around, pull it out. So yeah, it seems like Silka might be alone on this one in terms of the cold pull, but dare I say, the argument's not over, because it sounds like they're yet to publish data on this. They're still working through that with the university. But yeah, I don't know. In the meantime, I'm erring on the side of what Zero Friction Cycling said, which is don't stress it. Just heat up your wax until it's melty, and then wax your chain.
It's all going to be better than using a wet lube. So
it is. So yeah. So anyway, if you want more information on that, or in relation to the test, we should have a story on that up on Escape Collective by the time you're listening to this. And if you think this is all crap and hate chain waxing, then no worries. That's all good. All right. Speaking of chain waxes, I figured this week, rather than a PSA, we might have a back to basics section. And what better place to start than chain loops? So, an old favorite topic of the podcast. But yeah, I think I heard on a mountain bike podcast just this last week about using wet lubes when it's wet and dry lubes when it's dry, and I figured it's probably time for a little bit of a reminder that there are some brands that sell them that way, but officially and technically that shouldn't be categorized that way. Technically, a wet lube is one that stays wet once it's on the chain, and a dry lube is one that becomes dry once it's applied to the chain. So yeah, the other way to think of it is like a dry lube would be a wax-based lube, or something that's burns off and just leaves like a dry surface to touch. And a wet lube is traditionally like a oil-based. So yeah, you'd end up with an oil or some other form of chemical that or compound that remains wet to touch. That said, Zach, how often do you have the conversation in your shop about that wax doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take off a chain and put it into a hot melted, like a slow cooker of wax?
Very frequently. I'd say like even people that were kind of hesitant on wax, but like say their friend convinced them this is the way to go. They're still like, I don't know, it seems like a lot to do. And I'm like, you don't need to. Like personally, I don't know, we have 10 plus bikes at home that are always in use. And all of them are waxed. And once the chain is on the bike, it almost is never coming off to go back in the crock pot. Like always using a drip wax lube. In terms of the like use a wet lube when it's wet and a dry lube when it's dry, like you can't really do that without taking the chain off and fully cleaning it after putting the wet lube on. Historically, there were a lot of dry lubes that said that they were dry, that were not actually dry. Like they were more of a light thin wet lube. Right? Which are very like, those are, you can go back and forth between, but like an actual dry lube and a wet lube, you can't really do that.
So yeah, it is still confusing because in the market we do have like big brands with big marketing budgets like Muck Off and Finish Line that still promote wet and dry lubes for wet and dry conditions, but they are all oils.
I feel like Finish Line has wax now as well.
They do. They also, Finish Line does have wax, which kind of confuses their product range even more. But so yeah, they have joined the wax game. But yeah, I think Zach, what you were talking about, yeah, I think it's important to note that chain wax there's two very different camps of chain wax. There's the hot melt where yeah, it's basically like a paraffin with additives, and you do have to melt it down. Think of it like as a sophisticated candle. You melt it down, you dip the chain into that, and then the other one's drip wax. And there's different versions of this. Some are basically like a byproduct of producing paraffin, and they have quite a lot of oil content in them. Others are like true like paraffin wax that is in like an emulsion. So once the emulsion burns off, whether it's water or alcohol, it leaves like a true dry candle-like material on the chain. So yeah, that's examples of that latter one, and probably like Silka, Ceramic Speed, and Rex. But yeah, Alex, I know you've written at length about this topic not so long ago. So yeah, what are your thoughts on this? Like, what sort of feedback did you have on that article?
I think the main thing is just to manage expectations between kind of like a hot melt and a drip. Like, you will get less lifespan with a drip on, so it will need reapplying more often. But yeah, for me, like where I live and the off-road riding I do, it's super gritty, especially in the winter. So anything that's wet on the chain, just you can hear. Once again, I'm tight, so I can hear my money literally grinding off my bike.
Yep.
And yeah, just like the frequency to which I would have to hot wax a chain, I'm just not going to be doing that in my kitchen as often as I should do. Whereas
because you're riding muddy trails, and it's like every ride,
every ride for 5 months, I'm coming back with a chain that's kind of worse for wear. Instead, just kind of giving the bike a proper clean down and then reapplying the drip at the end of the cleaning process is it's no different to applying how most people would apply a traditional wet oil lube. I just do it post cleaning rather than just before I head out the door.
Yeah, that's my suggestion for anyone that's like on the fence about wax, is start with the drip wax. The trick is that you need to start with a degreased drivetrain. The chain does need to be clean the first application. If you just apply it over your existing lube, it's gonna suck. And then basically for reapplication, always apply it at the end of your ride, and that way a lot of these drip waxes do need time to set. They need time to for the carrier to burn off, and if you do it after your ride, then it's going to be ready for your next ride. And I think you'll find that your drivetrains tend to last longer, unless you're the type that degreases your oil chain every ride.
A little trick I do like to do though, if I'm going to treat myself, is and I've got time, is using drip lube, letting it a drip wax, letting it set, and then doing a second coating, because as the carrier evaporates, it will leave gaps in the links and stuff. And if you just do a second coat, it minimizes that, and you'll get an even better performing chain for what is very little effort.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, Zach, what do you use in the workshops for hot melt and for drip wax? What are the go-tos?
I would say usually for the crock pot, I feel like right now I've got some Silka stuff in there. And for drip wax, I mean, it depends what I have around for personal bikes, whether it's Silka or Ceramic Speed usually. I'd say it seems like the Silka stuff seems to last a bit longer. So I'd probably lean that direction.
Interesting. Yep.
But yeah, I would say and with the drip, you would usually start with doing a hot melt with the chain. Like when the chain is new, do a hot, full clean, do a hot melt, and then just basically the lifespan of the rest of the chain. Unless the bike's getting fully tore down, then just use a drip wax.
Yeah, that's very similar to where I've landed these days for my own personal bikes, at least for those going off-road.
It's just way more practical. And I feel like, and I know that everyone's like, oh my gosh, the hot melt wax just lasts so much longer. I don't feel like it actually does in my experience. Like maybe an extra ride, but that's not worth it to me to pull the chain completely off, do the whole process rather than just dripping it on and letting it dry overnight. And neither are really a difficult process, but it's just more that little bit of extra time, right? And I think from practicality standpoint, most people have busy lives and you only have so much time in the day to ride, let alone also work on your bike. So it seems like that's the easier way. You just put it on the chain and just let it sit. You don't even have to clean the chain before, you don't have to wipe it off after, you just literally just put it on and go ride.
Yeah, and I think it's really important here because we're going to get a lot of complaints with what you just said. Like a lot of people that wax say, "Oh, yeah,
they will die hard argue.
It's the most time efficient thing you can do." Look, we get it. Like I've been waxing for years and years and years. It is very efficient, but where Zach's coming from is the latest batch of drip waxes are now very close to hot melt wax. And so you don't get like the muck and the buildup like a drip wax used, like old squirt chain lube, right?
Yeah,
it's still
you get more buildup on the pulleys.
Exactly. It does create a mess that is hard to clean off, and it does build up gunk. These latest lubes, like the Ceramic Speed, for example, does run very clean. Not as clean as a hot melt wax, but pretty close. And so yeah, there is the argument to be had that it is a more efficient method now that you can just quickly wipe down the chain and reapply drip lube, not breaking it
15 seconds.
yeah, not heating up the crock pot, not checking on it. Yeah, I understand people heat up their crock pot and do other things. That's cool. If it works for you, do it. But yeah, I think it is probably worth shouting out that some of these drip lubes are so great now that they're starting to overlap with what's the benefits of hot melt, and I think we're only going to see more and more of that. So Alex, what do you use product wise? What are you using these days?
I use a Silka drip on, which I find to be super good. The only thing I do find annoying at times is it's very runny when you apply it. So
correct.
If you watery. You just need to be careful of how much you apply and also where you're leaving the bike whilst it dries, because more than once I've come back to a little puddle of wax on the floor and having to apologize quite a lot to my girlfriend. So
Silka, I mean, it's available everywhere, and it's a safe bet, and it's well proven at this point. For me, that runniness that you mentioned is actually why I prefer Ceramic Speed. If for my own bikes, I find that like it froths up a little bit, stays on the chain. And for me, once it's set, it seems to set that little bit drier, and so it stays cleaner than the Silka does. The Silka still, for me, gets that little bit gummier, and I think that gummier nature is why, Zach, you say it lasts longer. I think it really does. I think it holds onto the chain longer and creates more of a barrier, whereas the Ceramic Speed does seem to abrade away a bit more, because I think it just is a harder material once it's set. So I think if you want pure cleanliness, I'd say go Ceramic Speed. If you're after the better longevity, I'd be saying probably Silka is a good pick.
I mean, both are quite clean. Like, it's small differences, right?
Yep. And the cleanest I've used, so Ceramic Speed's still for me my personal benchmark, but Rex Black Diamond chain lube that just came out recently. Oh, Black Magic, sorry. Black Magic drip wax just came out. It's pretty hard to get in a lot of countries, but that sets like a hot melt wax like I've never seen before. Like you let that dry and you actually see it flaking off the chain when you pedal. It's ridiculous. That said, I think that it flakes a lot. I think I'm still preferring like the Ceramic Speed or Silka, which seem to run a little bit dirtier, but don't make the flaking mess, and you feel like you're not rubbing it away when you pedal. So, but yeah, I think we're on the. A few years ago, I said it was the golden age of chain lubes, which was at the time the nerdiest thing I'd ever said. I think we're coming into another golden age where I think there's enough development happening now where I think we're seeing drip waxes starting to edge up into the realm of and the benefits of hot melts. And so I foresee a future where shops might set up customer bikes, or people might set up their own bikes with a hot melt wax chain, install it, and then they'll just stay on drip wax from there on. I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I've converted a lot of people just by, like, say I do a lot of new builds, like frame up builds and stuff, and I'll just default set it up as a wax chain, and then you're like, this is the drip lube, and this is what you want to use. And with that, I've converted a lot of people. Then they're like, oh, this is great. I want to do it to all my other bikes now. Which is great. It's just cleaner. Like, cassettes are so expensive these days. So it just makes sense.
Yeah. Consistently, time and time again, I've seen doing that. I've seen people get literally double the distance out of their chain at a minimum. It's often more. But yeah, like I would have been replacing chains for people that were using like whether it's like Rock and Roll Gold or whether it's a Finish Line or a Muck Off oil-based lube. They would be going through chains every 2,500 to 3,000 kilometers. I'd be replacing chains with that were showing as worn. And those same people will now be saying, oh, I've done 7,000, 8,000 kilometers on the chain. It's time for replacement. And I'll be like, it's still not worn yet. So, yeah, and that's not even using like the top drip waxes. That's often using something like Smooth, which is one I recommend as a price point pick. Yeah, it's not quite as expensive as the others we've been mentioning. And I'd say it's like 90% as good, and it runs a little bit dirtier, but that also seems to make it stick around a bit longer as well. So, yeah, I just remembered what that's called. It's called a slack wax. So it's not quite pure paraffin, but it's made of like the byproduct of when they're manufacturing the paraffin. So it does have like a higher mineral oil content that hasn't quite been distilled yet. So not a chemist. Hopefully I didn't butcher that, but yeah. So Squirt and Smooth are like examples of slack wax. So that's why they're a bit gummier than some of these others that we've been talking about. So anyway, that was quite geeky. All right, let's head over to the tech news corner. We've got the UCI have finally voted and confirmed a bar width rule. I know many people were hoping that they wouldn't, but they have. But it's a little bit more generous than what we first thought. Yeah, Alex, what are the details here?
Well, it's more generous in some ways. So other ways it stays just as restrictive as before. So the 400 millimeter outside to outside measurement has remained, which I know some smaller riders are pretty upset about, and it does feel disproportionately disadvantaging to them. But what has changed for the good is the minimum hood-to-hood distance. So originally when this story broke in the summer, the discussion was around it being 320 millimeters from the inside of each hood, which actually on a 400 mil bar end-to-end didn't leave much room for the hoods to do anything other than point straight ahead. But luckily, it looks like they've had a slight change of heart and they've moved to 280 millimeters. So a 40 millimeter reduction in that minimum width between the hoods, which should give riders a little bit more leeway in having their hood set up flared inwards if they prefer that for ergonomics and comfort. So especially with flared bars where the hoods do naturally get pushed inwards. Yeah, this is a positive move for bike fit. Whether it is good for riders of all sizes is probably not the case, but it's still a move in the right direction.
Zach, I mean, you work with some smaller riders fairly regularly, like whether it be juniors or female athletes. But what's where are you at with this? Where's your head at? Like, will this impact Ruth?
No, I think it's a non-issue now that they revised the inner width. So like, I literally just measured Ruth's bars because I got her bike here, and she has basically a 38 in the drops center to center bar. At the hoods, it's 36, and the hoods are angled in a bit, and you still have room to spare on the inner width measurement. And the 38 center to center is a 40 outside to outside. So like, what company makes narrower than a 36 at the hoods? Like integrated one piece cockpit? Like no one's making anything narrower. So all this is really doing is preventing the like ridiculous setups, which I think the people that are like, oh, the UCS shouldn't just have this rule in general. It's like, if what's his name? Jan Van Schip or whatever, like if that dude wasn't doing ridiculous, absolutely absurd handlebar setups, like this rule wouldn't have to exist. So this is just kind of preventing those like couple outlier, like you're running 26 centimeter bars and the hoods are fully angled in. Like, I don't know. I think it's a non-issue now.
Yeah, I also feel like we're going to be repeating something we covered in previous podcasts, but it's also about like really reducing the amount of flare that people are putting into handlebars.
Yep.
Because they started turning in their hoods to get hold a more like TT like position on the bike, and then the UCI wanted to limit that because of safety issues and it potentially kinking brake hoses, it causing cracks in some carbon handlebars, and so they brought in a way to measure that off of the drop, and then handlebar manufacturers or bike manufacturers very quickly just adapted the shape of the drop to just flare out so that you could get that extreme tilt in the hood, but trick the UCI's tool. And so I feel like this is all reactionary to like forever playing the game, and that's where we've ended. And yeah, I don't hate this simple method of just
like you have to have rules to some degree, right? You can't just be like free reign, do whatever you want with the handlebars. So I think this is, I don't know. I'm sure people will still complain because people just like to hate the UCI, but I feel like, I don't know, who's running narrower than a 36 bar? Like, that's not affecting anyone.
Yeah, I think you're right, Dave. I think it's just, this is the actual considered and measured approach that should have come in rather than that tool to measure the lever in turn, because, you know, it was a very easy rule to get around. And this is just, if they'd had more time than they did to 3D print a little jig at the Tour Down Under a couple of years ago, this is probably what they would have come to straight away anyway, because it actually does, it's an objective measure rather than subjective off of a different reference point.
And I think the like initial, before the rules official, the 320 measurement, that was wrong. Like that would have been, that's reasonable to be upset about that. But then I don't remember who it was. Someone was like, well, originally that was a center to center measurement. So then that makes more sense.
That was Adam Hansen. Yeah.
So that's where the 280 comes from.
Yeah, I do think we'll probably see some trying to trick that 400 width rule, whether it's like double wrapped bar ends,
for sure,
or something,
which is fine.
Yeah, but I think we're right.
Like if you're on a bike company, right, that has a 36 hit the hoods bar and doesn't have flare, then like you could just make the bar tape a bit wider at the drops. To kind of do that. But
yeah, for those that are wondering who Ruth is, Zach's wife, Ruth Edwards, rides for Human Powered Health, proper hitter. So, but also am I right? Just one of the smaller riders in the world tour?
We're not like insanely small, but like pretty short.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, one of the riders more likely to need a narrow handlebar, and so if her dimensions are falling within the realm of this new rule, then I think we're in a pretty decent spot. So.
I also think it's worth noting from the conversations I've had with some manufacturers, even if they make bars that would fall foul to this, they're still going to continue making them. And unless you're entering UCI races, this should not factor into your considerations.
Yeah.
No, I think like people kind of was saying, like people got overly upset about something that wouldn't affect them, right? It's like, I don't know, going on an internet tirade and like I'm never ever going to race in a UCI race. Just chill out.
Sure. Yeah. Or even if you think your race is UCI at your local club event, you're not having a technical commissioner show up to measure your handlebars. Yeah,
no.
It may be at a national level event, but So anyway, cool.
Yeah.
New handlebar rule. Yeah, I mean the other stuff in the tech news corner is kind of like downer industry news. So the cycling industry continues to remain in a bit of a tough spot, and some brands seem to be picking themselves up and others aren't. The latest news is YT Industries, mountain bike brand. Certainly better known in the gravity end of the space, but they've in recent years spread their wings and even have a gravel bike. They set to close. I mean, they filed for bankruptcy not so long ago and couldn't find someone to purchase the company, and it looks like founder Marcus Fossman is seeking to buy back the brand and sort of rebirth it, but all of that's up in the air. But YT Industries as we know it, and under its current ownership, and I think it's done for now.
Yeah, sad times. It's one of those brands I remember when I was a young teenager and trying to get jobs and save up money to get a mountain bike, especially in the UK. It was one of the more affordable and attractive brands because of their distribution model. And also, I don't know how many
Consumer direct. Yeah.
Yeah. And also YT, at least when it was founded, stood for youth talent. Like it was a brand built around trying to make bikes affordable for younger riders coming into the sport to really find their feet. And I thought, as a lot of direct consumer brands go, the prices did creep up over time as they established themselves as a more desirable brand.
And as they did like ads with Christopher Walken and sponsored a leading World Cup team. But yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
They were still, I think, at least in the UK, relatively a competitive brand for the build you got. And they always seem fairly popular as well. So yeah, it's a shame to see the demise of a brand that was clearly loved, at least in some corners of the mountain bike world.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly had some models and bikes that were really popular and seemed to do well. I'd also say they had some missteps along the way. I know that at some point they were taking orders with really long delivery times without alerting customers. And I know the internet was a buzz with customers sort of saying they'd waited months for delivery and that communication was poor and all that. So yeah, I mean they haven't had a perfect smooth sailing venture to get here, but yeah, it is one of those brands that has suddenly built itself up and has a pretty loyal following. And I'd like to see them come back if the market allows, and if the founder can make that happen. But yeah, for now, one to watch, because it does seem to be in idle at the moment.
Do you get the feeling that it's by the announcement of these sort of things, it's a harder time at the minute in the mountain bike corner than it is the road with GT as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think certain brands are still heavily overstocked from 2 or 3 years ago, and my understanding is that sales are pretty woeful in the mountain bike space. I've also heard some stats that suggest that e-mountain bikes are sort of all that's selling.
I was just going to say, I had a chat with an old boss of mine actually from a bike shop who was saying that with non-e-bike mountain bikes now, the geometry's kind of stabilized in a good position, and you're just not getting a lot for your money buying a new model. You might get a new group set or maybe it's a new suspension, but those can be individual upgrades rather than a new bike.
That's why we have new wheel sizes coming.
yeah 32 inch is gonna revolutionize all of this, but I say that tongue in cheek, but it's I think there's so many factors here, but I think like the economics of it is that like so many people bought new bikes already in COVID, and now they're sitting on XX stock. There's a lot of sales around, and all of that's just suppressed the used market. So people have the option to buy a new bike, but they're not really attracting new people to mountain biking. So you're talking about someone that wants to get rid of their 3, 4, 5-year-old mountain bike, which is still kind of competitive and is now worthless. And so it makes it a hard decision to spend a huge amount of money on a brand new bike when your current bike isn't that different. So I think that's the issue that the industry is facing at the moment. And I mean, there's little gadgets here and there like down tube storage or electronic gears that are trying to help sell bikes, but fundamentally not a lot has changed in the last 4 to 5 years in the space. So but yeah, e-mountain bikes do seem to be quite popular in certain regions of the world. I heard some stat, I can't remember where this came from, and apologies if it's if I'm spreading false information, but I heard some stat that suggested the German market for mountain bike, more than 90% of new bike sales are now e-bikes. Yeah, so which makes those numbers make sense to me, because it was like 5 years ago it was 50% of all new mountain bike sales were e-bikes. So
it's not a hard figure to believe. It's still, I just find it crazy, but that's where we're at.
Yes. Yeah. So hard one for the brands at the moment. But I guess speaking of that, and speaking of someone else playing in that space, CSS Composites. So they're the US based thermoplastic carbon manufacturer. Thermoplastic being like kind of carbon fiber reinforced plastic that can be melted back down and the carbon fiber extracted from it. They were making rims for the likes of Chris King, Revel, and select few Bontrager wheels. They were also making wheels for themselves under the Forge and Bond name. They have announced to their OEM partners, just at the time of recording, they sent out a letter basically saying we are ceasing operations and liquidating the business, and that from here on out, all orders and warranty support will be null and void. More to come on this story, I'm sure, but right now at the time of recording this, that's basically all we know. It seems to have caught the OE brands out by surprise. The likes of Chris King have come back to Escape Collective and said, we just found out about this, and we hope that there are changes to this, because there's contracts in place, and we need some. We just expected more. So I'm paraphrasing there. But I think it's an interesting one. It's also kind of a sad one, because it's one of those brands that was actually doing something like genuinely different. I don't know. Any thoughts on these products?
I mean, it'll be interesting if someone buys the equipment. It would be sad for it just to go to waste in that technology, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean the technology I would say is not proprietary, but it does seem like it's a big investment. So there are others playing with thermoplastic. I think in Europe there's a brand called Reinforced, which I think are helping to make a bike with focus and a few other things. Very similar technology, but yeah, it does require a big initial investment to make this stuff. You're talking about like it's basically injection molding. So yeah, it's very automated once it is set up, very quick and efficient manufacturing. But I think the initial investment cost is extreme, so hard to get the foot in the door. But yeah, I'd like to see this come back. I mean, they claim it to be more impact resistant. A lot of people that have ridden it says this type of carbon fiber tends to like dull the buzz a bit better, so it has like a slightly different ride quality. And then yeah, I think the idea of a composite that can be quickly or efficiently and safely melted back down to its raw ingredients is attractive. Unfortunately, yeah, CSS never quite got there with that. Their idea of recycling was to like chop up the broken rims and turn them into $45 tire levers. But yeah, the idea was there. So yeah, I think there was talk of like maybe doing forged stems and other things with this material. So I agree. I'd love to see this tech continue and to be in use, and hopefully someone else can take it on. But that all remains to be seen. So yeah, more sad news of the industry. But yeah, that's Tech News Corner, and that's the whole episode for those on the free feed. We're going to head on over to the member only section now. And yeah, for that, we have Ask a Wrench waiting. So if you're not on the member feed, then just know that you're about to miss out on some goodness. We've got plenty of geeky chats to have. And this week, we've got a varied list of questions. We've got one about someone relatively new to road cycling that's had some issues with their gears and, yeah, just wants some information around that. And I think, yeah, we've got some info that should prove useful for anyone with like still on mechanical gearing. We've got a question from a wheel builder in Belgium that's actually just wants to know about modern mountain bike geometry and sort of what to look for when buying a new mountain bike. And the last question relates to Shimano 12-speed road stuff and the adhesive ring that you find on the back of the cassette. So we'll answer a question related to that. All right. Well, yeah, if you're on the free feed, thanks for joining us. Please consider joining Escape Collective. Your membership is our only source of revenue. So we don't have ads. We don't have affiliate links. It is purely member driven. So if you'd like to support what we do and then gain access to everything that we do in return, head to escapecollective.com/join. From there, once you're a member, you'll get sent a little magic link, and that lets you add the member-only version of the podcast to your podcast player of choice. And yeah, you can therefore listen to the full versions and every episode that we publish every week without having to go hunting for it. So anyway, let's head on over to Ask a Wrench. Thanks to Will Jones of Red Bricks Media for the editing and mixing of this episode.